All right, everyone, we got to step up pressure on the Catholic Church. This is the first time in many years that priest abuse has been like a prevailing story. Because I can remember back, I think wasn't it the early 2000s, the last time you had a bunch of cases and people came forward and they're like, hey, I was victimized by a priest years ago, or I'm being victimized by a priest yesterday. And it became a big thing. I remember they had that movie with Oliver O'Grady. Yeah, that was one of the big cases because he had been shuttled around by the Catholic Church, but the bishop that was over him shuttled him, I think, on 4 different occasions from parish to try to hide his sex crimes. He had abused hundreds of people. Children of all, apparently he doesn't have a particular age threshold, doesn't even really care about gender because he was basically molesting everybody. He's one of the worst people, and the church sent him to Ireland, and he's not in jail. As far as I know, he's still free. He's still, if he's still alive, he was an older gentleman. Gentleman, loosely speaking. But, I mean, during the documentary, they're, like, showing him next to the fucking play school area, watching the kids and stuff, and he's sitting there, like, basically chuckling and joking about his pathology. And these sick people exist, apparently, at large levels within the Catholic Church. Now we have a new story from Germany. They've got some dozens of priests there that have been accused. And part of it is moral panic, but no, I can believe it because we've got a precedent for priests doing this. When you've got someone in a position of power where they're, alone with kids or alone with anybody else, that can be abused. This is why you constrain government, because power tends to corrupt them and make them abusive. Well, the Catholic Church doesn't have maybe as much doctrinal legal power anymore, but it certainly has a de facto power because of people's belief in that particular deity. The sort of tradcon belief, the God will hate me if I tell people that this priest did bad things to me, I'll end up getting accused. They'll call me a whore or something. That happens within Catholicism. Another reason I hate organized religion. A bunch of BS for the most part. People in fancy clothes trying to dispense spirituality to you when you should be searching for it on your own and not being lazy about it. I really believe that. But beyond that sort of stuff, talking about organized religion, it seems like the Catholic Church is in a unique position of being just riddled with perversion. They had a hotline that they set up in New Jersey for victims of priest abuse. They're like, if you've been victimized by a Catholic priest or bishop or whatever, you can call this number, we'll talk to you, blah, blah, blah. Get a legal case going, give you counseling. The phone was ringing off the hook so much that basically it was overrun. I can believe that because when you look at New Jersey or the area, and you think about how many tens of millions of people reside within the New York metro, certainly area, considering the number of them that are Catholic, it would be odd if some tens or hundreds of thousands of them hadn't been abused. In all honesty, it seems to be a very, very high rate. And I'll tell you why. It's for the same reason that you get all these stories about teachers that are abusing people. Both physically, sexually, whatever it happens to be. It's the same thing. People, I think, the more religious side is that people who are perverted, they're like, oh my God, I feel guilty, so they go into the priesthood and they're like, well, they're going to teach me how to be celibate, they're going to teach me how to be holy and pray my way through it and not victimize anyone, so I'll be better because God will help me. They get in there, they realize that doesn't actually help them, they still have that underlying problem, because they're not coming forward saying, hey, oh my bishop, I lust after people of an illegal age. Please get me into, therapy that'll actually work instead of telling me to just be celibate and pray it away. And it doesn't work. And so they victimize people. The other side is opportunistic. That is someone who's perverted. They might say, well, I'll just become a priest. Look, the Catholic Church will shelter me. I'll be alone with people all the time and do whatever I want. And then I'll just tell them that they'll go to hell if they say anything. Works for me. Unfortunately, I guarantee you that there are people in the Catholic Church who've done it. It's not just Catholicism. Let's get over the concept that it's just the Catholic Church. But more visibly so, it seems Catholicism is uniquely guilty of this at a higher level. Could it be the doctrine? I mean, all these tradcons will talk about certain other groups and their doctrines and how they affect the beliefs and the ways and the sort of lifestyles of the believers. Well, why not for Catholicism too? Let's dig through the doctrine a little and see what could possibly be spawning this. Respect your elders, I guess. Spare the rod, spoil the child. It's just, O'Grady used a different rod. The Catholic Church has a deep, deep problem with this. How can you possibly say that the Pope, by the way, if he knew this was going on and appointed some cardinal anyway, how the fuck could God possibly decide, oh yeah, he's the most holy person in the world? You should listen to this dude in the white robe. He's like all great and shit. Meanwhile, the prior pope had been the head of the council that was looking into the sex abuse claims under Pope John Paul. Ratzinger was appointed by John Paul himself while still a cardinal to that same thing. That was during the O'Grady period. So now you got two popes in a row that apparently knew about these problems going on and did butt-fuck nothing. And then, of course, John Paul was obviously complicit. I know that he's held up on a pedestal by the Polish and by Catholics. They're like, oh, he was such a great pope and stuff, for I don't know why, because he kissed somebody's foot once. It's like, yeah, but he never had to worry where his next meal was coming from. These people, they're so pious. Oh, look, it's like with Francis. Oh, Pope Francis, he doesn't carry the golden cross, and he doesn't wear the little crown, and he doesn't wear the ruby slippers and all the other, weird Babylonian fish cult sort of iconography that they wear. So he's so pious. Yeah, but he can drink wine anytime he wants. It's the good stuff. His table is not empty. He doesn't have to worry about a draft coming in when he's sleeping at night. No, he's not like taking a vow of poverty by not carrying a bunch of gold around. More likely, it's just he's like, hey, dude, I'm in my 70s. This stuff is heavy. Fuck it, you carry the gold. I'll carry this little wooden staff because, it only weighs a couple pounds. But they've got a huge problem with priest abuse. It seems to be like maybe 1 out of every 10 priests is buggering somebody. or they're gay. And again, it's like, who cares? But, that is against the rules of your church. It's kind of funny. It's sort of like when you look, and if you look at Catholicism especially, if you look back at like the medieval era, the Renaissance, have you ever heard this? The monks used to build onto their monasteries a special room that was connected, but they would declare it not part of the monastery. It was like, had its own door. And so it's like, oh, that's not the monastery. And they'd go in there to drink and solicit prostitutes because they were, semi-allowed to do so at times. And it was like originally priests, even though they were supposed to be celibate, it was understood that they had their lady friends or guy friends, and the Catholic Church didn't care. Then there was that one pope that was riddled with polio and people couldn't even kiss his feet because they were covered in sores and tumors. Then there was that pope with the joust of the whores, can't remember which one it was. He got together with his family and sort of the cardinals and stuff, and they had a contest to see who could sleep with the most women. And they were like taking roasted chestnuts and tossing them on the floor and having the women grub after them like pigs. He thought it was great fun. What about that one pope that was like, 19 when he was elevated to popedom, and he got his head smashed in with a hammer for sleeping with some dude's wife? What about the pope that slept with his own sister? Had kids by her too. The Catholic Church certainly inherited all of the holiness of God. Now, if you read the Bible, you'll find there is some overlap there with some of the behavior. It's like, come on. People have to cast aside the illusion that organized religion has some special power that keeps people... That means, yes, you should leave your kid with this weirdo in the robe because God put him there, so he's obviously trustworthy. And in some cases, I hate to say it, this is going to sound bad to some people. In some cases, the religiosity, superstition, and bad choices of the parents are playing a role in this. And it's not just the priests themselves. Because they can't victimize your kid if you're always with your kid by their side. But if you're like, hey, honey, go off to summer camp with these weirdos. They claim that God inspired them so they can do no harm. Go ahead. Yeah, like that's not asking for trouble when you know that there is a problem with priest abuse. There is a problem in the Catholic Church. You're crazy right now if you're leaving your kid alone with a priest. I gotta say that. You're crazy if you're doing that. Unfortunately, a lot of people still do, especially, it's not so much here in the U.S. Here in the U.S., it's gotten exposed more. People talk about it more. What about Italy? What about Latin America and all of these hyper-religious cultures where the priest still is the pillar of the community? You say, oh yeah, the priest touched me the wrong way. What's going to happen? Is the priest going to get fired, or are you going to get fired and cast aside by your entire village? This is a problem in more religions than just Catholicism. When we're talking about the U.S. or, maybe the developed world, Catholicism appears to be the one having this issue. Of course, it is in other religions too. Anytime you get an organized group that takes unto itself that sort of role, you're going to get people who are abusive, either trying to be cured of their proclivities and then they're let down because there is no spiritual force to help them. It's just a bunch of people. It's basically a corporation at this point. Or they're doing it for malicious purposes. That's what I think. And this has been a problem for a long time. Don't think that, some people make the excuse, it's modern decadence. It's because of the secular evil Satan world that we live in. No, this has been a problem for a long time. Even 20 years ago, here in the US and elsewhere, people were far more religious than they are now. It was still a major problem. It's just that it got hushed up more easily because people were more religious. So yeah, you didn't see the problem as much. Yeah, back in the nifty 50s, if you were abused by the priest, do you think that you came forward to say the priest abused me? No, if you said anything, you probably got smacked across the face by your parents. Well, yeah, then you didn't see these abuse problems. They were happening. You didn't hear about them very much. That's about all. Peace out.